I've been around the industry for security, media, Pro AV, and structured cabling now for close to 20 years. And some of the colleagues that I've worked with closely have been the independent agents in Latin America. Part of what we're wanting to do today is highlight their responsibilities, their efforts in the region as important players for manufacturers to have coverage throughout Central South America as well as the Caribbean. So whereas the agents usually are very much focused on their brands, today what we want to do is focus on them as entrepreneurs, as business people, as
I'm gonna live with my dreams.
Actors again in the industries.
Oh, I know they won't come true.
The idea is that if you are a vendor out there and you are interested in picking the brains of any of these
I'm gonna live with my dreams.
Leaders, please, they're available for you.
I know they won't come true.
You know, somebody has an itch to go out and become an independent agent, also reach out to them. The idea is to be transparent, to create a fraternity,
So chisel on my
here
tombs.
of actors that serve the industry.
Souvenir of the blue.
So, again, welcome to all. Thank you for joining us.
A
So this is how we're going to do it. We have 3 sessions today, each with 4 integrator leaders. They will each present themselves in the order that I have here. And we will then, so they'll have 5 to 10 minutes to talk about who they are, what they've done in the industry, and then we're going to talk about certain topics of the session. So the first session is Secrets to Running a Successful Firm. We have Leo Cothros, Berenice Gutierrez, Matthew Garfein, and finally Glenn Patricio. So I'm hoping that Leo is finally connected. Yes, I see that Leo is connected.
Yes.
So Leo, I give you the floor for 5 to 10 minutes. Tell us about what you do and a little bit about your responsibilities in Latin America.
I cover the Latin American market and as well Canada. I'm in Canada, in between Toronto and Ottawa, and I've been working as a rep for about 14 years.
Awake at night for some love, just so troubled.
Electrohome, Christie, AMX, Senelec, and another.
It's hard to keep a job,
And,
laid off and
regarding
having double
running a successful
trouble.
rep firm, I think that the obvious answer would be excellent service, understanding the needs of your people, speaking the local
They
language.
say you can make it
And,
if you try.
basically spending some time face to face, which is now very difficult, with COVID and the cost of traveling and everything, but nothing really supersedes.
Yeah, some of the
spending
generation
time
is millionaires.
face-to-face, with the end users or distributors.
Hard for
dealers,
me to
and
keep a
agents.
decent clothes to wear.
The other thing that we found out, at least in our firm, is that for a long, long time, we were just focusing on distributors. We were not really paying too much attention to dealer, integrators, and end users. We changed our focus. We are catering more to smaller companies, that are very, dynamic and more numerous than the distributors in Latin America, and also paying special attention to large end users, which we were ignoring before. Sorry, Max.
No. You still have a few more minutes if you want. What I wanted before we got into talking about the topic at hand was basically for you to present yourself and your firm. So you have a few more minutes.
Okay, well, our firm.
Tell us about Global AV Network. So you're based in Toronto?
I'm based, close to Toronto. Our firm is truly an international firm. We have representatives in San Jose, California, Taipei, Mexico City, São Paulo, Brazil, different places in Europe as well. We have sub-reps in Europe, in Spain, France, and we used to have one in Russia, but now it's debatable whether we So we try to be a global firm, kind of catering to companies that are willing to give us a product charter for the world, going for important territories such as Europe or Latin America or North America. So
You are not exclusive to Latin America.
well, the only other territory that I cover is Canada because I'm here, so it's actually very easy for me to cover Canada. But other than that, I am exclusive to Latin America. Yes, I cover from.
He's obviously, you work on the AV, multimedia, pro AV, I'm assuming, industry. You do anything
Exactly.
electronics.
Right. No, it's exclusively the Pro AV industry that we we're not involved in computers and structured cabling or anything.
Well, thank you, Leo.
All right.
With Berenice. Berenice, tell us about yourself, about your firm, about how long you've been doing what you do as CEO
Left
and
to be
founder of
working,
Proactive
baby,
Latin America.
when I had no place
you're
to
based.
go.
Well, thank you, Max. So we have been working for the Latin American market since the last 14 years. So I have been working with some other rep companies before, and then in the last 4 years, 5 years almost, so we create a Proactive Latin America as a new company. So we started doing business based in USA, and then we moved the operation and mainly the office to Mexico City. So right now we are based in Mexico City. It's our main office. We have some agreements as well with some technical support agents in different countries. So obviously our experience on the market has been focused mainly in AV, but we had been working as well with some brands in different verticals like DJ and I over the history that we have been working with into the region. So one of the main brands that we have right now and over the last 6 years is Martin Audio. So Martin Audio is one of our most important brands, and we have been trying to get more opportunities into the region with all the crew that we have. So we have been trying to develop new markets, new business models as well, not only with Martin but also with the portfolio brands that we have. So we are always trying to work closer to the brands that we represent, also to the new customers, because the biggest company that used to be running the business in many countries has been splitting their business or their focus. So we have been trying to be as proactive as we can. That's the base of our name.
Berenice.
Yes, exactly. So so this is what basically what we have.
Another technical glitch here. Hopefully it's not. Oh, okay. So it's not me. Berenice, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We lost you for a second. No worries.
Oops. Okay, that was the best part of the history. So so basically, yeah. I mean, we are very passionate about what we do. I mean, the team that we have here at Proactive have a lot of history with not only with their careers, but also with the complete market that they have been working with. So we have people that have been doing touring for the last 4 years almost. So we had people here as well who has been also working on the other side, inside sales. So we try to create a very practical but also proactive business model with the business partners that we have and the network that we are working daily. So things are moving fast right now again. So after the pandemic, of course, as all the companies here, we have been trying to be very respectful with each others. I have a very good relationship with Matthew, for example, and a great respect for his career. So and that's part of the policy that we try to honor as proactive. So we try to create the best benefits for our brands, but also respecting our colleagues on this area, because not many people understand what we do. So it's like, okay, but are you the brand or are you not? Are you getting an income because you are adding a margin to my price? So it's very difficult to make the people understand where we are at, because we are not a lot, so we are few companies doing this. So and it's a great opportunity as well for me and for our team to meet each other.
Can I say something, Max? Max?
I think Max has some connectivity issues. I think you should just go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. No, I was going to say that, Berenice is absolutely right. Um, I just wanted to support, again, the point that we have to be very ethical in the way we work. Many times we have been contacted by companies that have reps in Latin America. And, the first question that I ask is, why do you want to leave your rep? And if I don't really find that the reasons are strong enough, that they make sense in any
Yes.
way, that, they're just saying, okay, well, my rep is not really performing. Why is that?
Yes.
I do not take the customer. I just don't. I refuse the account. Sometimes the reasons are really, really very strong, and we
Yes.
have to take that into account. But in many cases, people have outsized expectations, and
Yes.
they believe that by changing firms, they are going to increase their sales, by 20, 30, 50%, whatever.
Hmm.
And those accounts, shouldn't be welcome, shouldn't be taken by another firm. It wouldn't make any sense for us to do that.
Yes,
So I
exactly.
think that, your point, Berenice, is really a very good one. Uh, we have to take accounts, but at the same time, be very careful about, what we're doing, and, who we're taking in, and, the reasons for for the change.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very important for us. So over the history, we had been trying to avoid those kind of situations. So one of the hardest experience that I had, so it was a very important company as well, and they were
Hmm.
offering me a very good offer, and I said, first you need to finish all your pending topics, and then we can have a chat. So that's not ethical to get, okay, yes, let me give you a better package. So it's not like that, and there are many companies, and every time we had been watching the new uh, and more brands coming up to the business. So I think that there is enough market for everyone, and that's the better way to to try to understand and try to get a better, or to create or and build a better industry from my part, from my side. So that's my apportation for my industry.
Hmm.
Well, thank
No,
you very much,
I certainly agree.
Berenice. Sorry, I fell off there.
Hmm.
Again, I think I'm the one having the problems here with my internet. But okay, so to continue, I'm sorry, Matthew Garfein, would you please chime in a little bit about who you are, your history, and what you do at your firm, please?
Absolutely. Thanks again for the invitation to participate, Max. It's really an honor to be sharing the stage here with colleagues such as Berenice and Glenn and Leo. And thanks for all the work that you do to promote the business in the territory. Good morning, everyone, or wherever you are in the world. Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Garfine. and I am the founder and partner of two Latin America sales rep agencies. One is Audio Americas, which represents audio-video brands, both residential and commercial. The other is called Legado Sales, which represents musical instruments and pro audio products. I'm also a founding partner of a Miami-based export wholesale business called Audio Video Export. And I also have an export sales consultancy called Export Advisors. We have a series of podcasts called Export Advisors available on all the major streaming platforms. I am from California originally, but I've been living in Chile for 22 years. I speak fluent Spanish and almost fluent Portuguese. And I'll talk a little bit about Audio Americas, which is really the company that's relevant for the kind of categories and markets we're discussing today. We established Audio Americas in 2003. We're focused only on Latin America and the Caribbean. We don't do business in any other parts of the world. We have dedicated sales teams for the residential and the commercial divisions. Our residential division is actually older. We have 7 people on that side of the business, and we have five people working in the commercial division. Most of our employees, our workers are based in Chile, Mexico, Costa Rica, Ecuador, and Uruguay. On the residential side, categories we focus on are home theater and stereo, electronics and speakers, home automation, residential security, AC power protection products, and structured wiring. On the commercial side, it's electronics and speakers for distributed audio, AC power protection, signal management, infrastructure products. We have about 250 active customers in 26 countries. So that's Central America, South America, Caribbean. We have dedicated sales engineers for certain brands that require a strong technical support background to support them. Everyone in our company is bilingual. We have a dedicated tech support manager, dedicated marketing manager who supports our customers with social media, a dedicated order admin that helps customers with their logistics. And the idea is that we allow our customers to do business in their own language, which is always more comfortable for everybody. So I've always sort of pitched our services as an outsourcing solution for manufacturers that want to take an active approach to managing Latin America, rather than just taking orders, but pounding the pavement, hitting the streets, and finding the right partners and trying to align each brand with the right distribution strategy and the right partner in each country. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do. And thanks for the opportunity.
Very succinct, Matthew. Thank you very much. To the point. All right. And finally, Glenn Patricio, who are you? What do you do? How long have you been doing it?
It's going to take more than 5 minutes to do that, but we'll get it in 5 minutes. Max, thanks again. I reiterate what Matthew said. Thank you for this forum and great opportunity to be amongst peers. I am a little bit different. I am not in the AV world like these three are. I am in the electronic surveillance and security world. Been there for 42 years. I've had my own rep firm now. Next year will be 20 years. We only do Latin America and the Caribbean. We are a value-added sales and marketing arm to our manufacturers. We kind of specialize in enterprise projects. May I share my screen, Max, real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
Let's see if I can do this. So if I'm sharing my screen, this is our resource network.
It's still not showing, Glenn.
It's not showing?
No. At least internally here in our amongst the panelists, it's not. So maybe to the viewers.
How about now?
It's thinking.
Yes, I can see it, Glenn.
Okay, so basically we have a total of 13 resources in the field, which is really what manufacturers are looking for these days, is the ability to generate sales through the correct channels, whether it be distribution and whether it be integrator. We also do a lot of demand creation at the end user level. This is my group spread throughout Latin America and South America with where they're based. And that would be that. I will stop sharing. Again, we specialize in the electronic security space, surveillance. We do sales and marketing for them. We do bilingual, trilingual. We have 3 people on my staff that speak 3 languages. And last but not least, because of the way the industry is changing with the technicalities of the products being right now very technical, we also do what's known as professional services. So we assist the integrator in actually deploying products and enterprise solutions throughout Latin America. Again, 20 years, 42 years of experience, and 13 resources in the field. Max, thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Again, thank you, Leo, Berenice, and Matthew for that introduction. So the first order of the business of this panel session is secrets to running a successful rep firm. Now, obviously, I don't think you're going to tell me the the secret sauce, the secret ingredients, but the idea is understanding how you choose the right approach, both with vendors and markets. What makes a successful sales agency, and how do you measure success? Is it top line growth? Is it top line sales, or is it the profitability of a certain line, even though it doesn't sell a lot, but it's an easy sale. So, Leo, would you like to have a first crack at talking about any of those topics I just discussed?
Sure. I believe that I just want to take your last point first, Max. How do we measure success? We measure success in terms of, market awareness of the products that we represent. Also the quality of the companies that we can reach through the products that we represent. We also measure success by sales, of course, that is an important measure of success. And another metric, that we've been using more and more is profitability. I recently had to spend over 10 hours with a dealer that eventually bought, just a few products. And I certainly regretted that decision, but in order to grow in certain markets, we were forced to just leave our basic model of only selling to distributors and also including dealers and integrators. And it can be profitable, but at the same time, it can be very dangerous, because they do demand a very high level of service and, a lot of time. And many a times their purchases or, their sales are very disappointing. So I think that, that's all I want to say about how we measure success, and that is forever evolving in our company, and we are coming up with new ideas. And we've been using social media more and more and very successfully. And that has actually saved a lot of money in terms of creating awareness, in terms of getting together with the right people in the right country as well.
Okay. Berenice, do you agree that there is a trade-off between managing small dealers as opposed to letting the distributor do that?
I think that it's very important to try to get some innovation between the products that you have, the managing direction that every brand has sometimes, because sometimes you are trying just to fulfill the needs of the brands, but also we need to make them understand. Talking about the business globally, Latin America has been always like the less profitable business for the brands. So sometimes to get them focused on this part of the business, so gets complicated, So the regional politics situation that we have nowadays in different countries. So it's something that we need also to try to be very empathic and try to understand clearly exactly what is the business or what is the target that we need to hit with every product. So there is not like a general formula, but it needs to be matching between the size of the company, the business model that your distributor might have. Also, if there is no distributor, if you are trying to open distribution partners. So it's quite different what we are trying to do right now, comparing this with 10 years ago, for example. Okay, so that's, I think that that's part of our main job, to try to make the factories understand what is the market right now, what is the status of a company as well, because many of the biggest companies that used to be doing very good business with on a distribution model are not doing that any longer because they have too many brands on them, so obviously to get the same speed and the same connection that they used to have before when there were less brands on the table. So it was obviously a different way to manage the business before. But I think that now, and besides, obviously COVID was like an earthquake for everybody. So and we are trying as well to try to make an agreement, to make bridges, to build bridges between the factories and the final user or the distributor or the dealer or the system integrator, because nowadays that we don't have enough stock of all the products, so we need to be very creative on what we do and the way we work.
I agree.
I can add
entirely
to
with
that.
what you said. Matthew, you want to chime in there on the different models that have evolved over the last 10 years, and whereas 10 years ago or 15 years ago it was very much distributor based, now the manufacturers are seeing the need to generate demand from the dealer and the end customer.
Yeah, I mean, one of the messages we always try to convey to manufacturers we work with about Latin America is it's not one size fits all. I think a lot of manufacturers look at Europe and say, oh, that works in Europe, why can't you just do that in Latin America? One of the biggest challenges that we all have is there aren't many real distributors in the territory. I mean, in the largest markets, you can find real distributors, usually several of them. In smaller markets, there's not enough of a dealer base to justify the wholesale model. So in smaller markets, there's usually no choice but to work directly with integrators or dealers. And you have to have the right pricing structure to keep the market level when you do that. The other thing is I like to, pardon my French, but I think it's important. We all of us have a bullshit filter, because it always happens that an integrator will call us up and claim to be a distributor, hoping to get a better price. So we really have to do our due diligence. And that's a big value add that we provide for the manufacturers, that we are actually the eyes and ears on the ground to filter out, who is really a distributor and who isn't. And we're willing to work with both, depending on the market, depending on the brand, and with the right price structure that can be managed.
Exactly.
Glenn?
I'd like to chime into the first question, Max, that you made to Leo about profitability and top line sales and manufacturers looking at. Manufacturers are looking at getting into a market they know nothing about. So how do you do that? Okay, you hire 5 or 6 people, you spend a bunch of money, and then you have a ramp up period of 2-3 years maybe before you even see profitability. So where does our value really shine? It shines in the fact that all of us have resources on the ground. It shines to the fact that we are, Matthew said it perfectly, we're the eyes and ears of the manufacturer. If they want to get into a market like Latin America, they would have to spend a fortune to hire people that have knowledge of the market, as much as knowledge as we have of the market. So now they hire us and they don't pay us anything until we make a sale. So if you want to talk about profitability and top line sales, it's all measured on top line sales for my manufacturers. Every year I'm graded on what did I do last year and what am I going to do this year. There's one thing you can always guarantee in Latin America: 1 or 2 or maybe 3 countries are going to go, ooh, something's going to happen. Argentina right now wants 180 days credit to do external business. You've got governments going either left or right or whatever. Communism is building, whatever you want to call it. But we have to be flexible in how we attack that market, because there is a way that we have to move resources around, because the guarantee is that countries in Latin America are going to not do well. So we have to be flexible. If a manufacturer was going to have their own people on the ground and you weren't able to sell in Argentina anymore, then you made a huge investment. And now what are you going to do with that guy? You have to let him go. So going back to your original question to Leo, Max, is manufacturers using us see great profit and great top line sales if the go-to-market strategy is correct. Is that something that says I need to shut up? Is
No.
that a challenge for me that I talk too much?
No.
All right. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that topic. And going back to the other topic that they were talking about, distribution, yeah, the demand creation is what we do. We're in the enterprise market. So we don't depend on our distributors, although we work with distributors. We work with integrators, but we have to drive the demand at the end user level because it's all project based. Similar to my peers here, their products are all project based too in the AV world. I don't know much about the AV world because it's not my thing. But at the end of the day, what we do for manufacturers in carving out their go-to-market strategy, they depend on us. And Matthew said something that I have to really, really echo and send it home, is if you're a manufacturer in Europe, China, or in the United States, and you think that your go-to-market strategy is going to work in Latin America, it will not. I'm going to tell you right now, don't even go that way. You have to talk to us about a go-to-market strategy because it will be different in Latin America. And if you plan on doing it the way you're doing it in Europe and the United States and Asia, it's not going to work. You will fail. So with that, I will relinquish my time.
Thank you, Glenn. Leo, you wanna respond to that or add to what Glenn was saying?
Well, those are all very, very good comments, from Glenn, and I can certainly subscribe to all of them. I would say that in addition, now we are facing a very, very challenging environment in Latin America. Their currencies are losing value vis-a-vis the American dollar and the euro. There is a very significant turn to the left in countries that were very reliable, like Chile, and I'm sure that Matthew will have a lot to say about that. And Mr. Boric, the new president, and certainly in Argentina, possibly in Brazil, if Lula wins the election. The main challenge, and as Glenn was saying, in Argentina now, is virtually impossible to import anything. The distributors, the integrators, and even the end users, huge companies like the state oil company YPF are not getting the dollars to import products from their central bank. So the environment is actually very, very challenged. And the manufacturers, in general terms, we work with European, North American manufacturers, no Asian manufacturers, and they do have sometimes outsized expectations about the market. They come to me and they tell me, take a look at Brazil, the 10th largest economy in the world, 220 million people there. Our sales should be at least, half of what they are in the US, but it doesn't work out that way. And
you mentioned 100% import duties and they can't believe it. That's real. How can that?
That's right. Yeah, they don't believe that. They certainly don't believe when you say in Mercosur, it will your product, before your product reaches the hands of the end user, it's about 100% or maybe 120% more expensive than the exports price. They certainly don't believe that. So it's really challenging, and it's becoming more challenging given that the Federal Reserve is raising interest now in the U.S. The dollar is getting stronger, and their currencies are getting weaker, and there is a lot more protectionism creeping in. We certainly saw that in Colombia, for instance. We're seeing that in Argentina, and we're seeing that in many other Central American countries. Anyway.
Okay, so I want to go back to Glenn's topic of the profitability and what Leo had said about dedicating so much time to a small integrator who, at the end of the day, doesn't do a lot of business. And so my question, I guess, is to give some time here to Berenice, who had mentioned the distributor model, which was very important 15 years ago. How again do you decide where to invest your time and effort between going after the integrators, for example, or the end user, and dedicating that time to the distribution channel, and when perhaps it's the responsibility of the distribution channel to be doing that work of having those feet on the ground and working with those small integrators. Berenice?
Well, so that has been one of our main challenges because it has happened that the distribution partners don't do that follow up enough, and sometimes many people try to look for the more that you talk about any of your brands, the more that the people will look for your support. So it doesn't matter if there is a distributor partner or not. So they are looking for answers. So for us is sometimes we go with the distribution partners, we assist them with designs, we assist them with some meetings, virtual meetings, or also we go with them to visit the end user just to get them confidence about what they are doing. It's a very big investment that sometimes the factories doesn't realize that. They just think that of the responsibility of the distribution partners, and yes, it is. But what happens if you don't have that feedback enough? What happens? So you cannot leave that on that way. So you need to go and try to make them as well, make some extra support or extra effort, and train them, because sometimes there are many things happening at the same time. People changing the job from one company to another, and it was maybe your main contact for tech support. So you need to help them to create another technical support inside. So that's a big investment of time. Yes, sometimes it doesn't justify the revenue that you can get, but at the end, one of the things that the reason that why we are here, it's because we really love this industry. So sometimes we add more time than the money that we receive, but at the end, so that is part of our measurements of success. I know that getting big orders and getting big numbers for the brands, of course, that's a very important part of the business, but it's also important to create more countries coming, more people knowing about your products, about what you can develop with them. So, and talk about an AV market. So it's very important to be involved with your distribution partners, with the system integrators, instead of saying, okay, you can go with the distributor. So of course, if you want price, you need to go to the distributor. But if that is something that you can add, some support to them. So and even more important, because sometimes they have 2 or 3 brands at the same time that they can compete. So the more information and the more support that you can give them, so it will be the best result that we can afford. So I think that is part of the philosophy that we have worked with not only with the brands but also with the distribution partners that we have.
Okay, thank you, Berenice. Matthew, the bullshit factor. How do you separate those distributors, those integrators that are trying to get favorable pricing, and certainly in small markets like Central America or the Caribbean?
It's just calling them up, having meetings, visiting them in person, figuring out what the deal is, asking the right questions. Someone who claims to be a distributor, there are some obvious questions like, okay, how many dealers buy from you at least once a quarter? How do you if you're doing projects, how are you structuring your pricing? Because someone who's claims to be a distributor but is also doing projects is actually competing with his own customers.
Yeah.
So in our buyer definition, that's not a distributor. So it's really just asking the right questions.
But so, again, in a smaller market like Ecuador or the nations of Central America, perhaps there's not market enough to warrant a distributor, like you were saying, in the bigger countries like Mexico or
Sure.
Brazil.
That's generally true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you find a lot of guys who are hybrids. They have let's say they have a retail store and they sell to some other guys in the market, or they do projects, sell to some other guys in the market. And so you need to make sure to give them the right pricing program. Someone who isn't really a distributor shouldn't be buying on distributor pricing. Distributor pricing for the manufacturer is lower, the selling price is lower, which means the manufacturer has less profit. So you got to make sure if you're going to put someone on distributor pricing that they're really going to do the volume and carry the inventory and play the role of a real distributor, not just, I sell to a couple guys down the road, every now and then.
Yeah,
Right?
that is a very significant challenge all the time. Yeah.
Max, I think that in our business, mind you, it's a different vertical than my peers here. Distribution is very important to us, but distribution has evolved and it's changed throughout the years. And I'll tell you how it's changed. They've gotten more products, so our attention has been kind of, we have less face time with them. So how do we get more face time with them? How do they do more for us in the smaller countries is a really good question. And you have to have the right distributor. And having 8 distributors is the wrong answer. It's the wrong answer. Less is more. You have to align yourself with a distributor partner who's going to put your brands on their back every day. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult to find one. But if you find one, it's absolutely a gold for you and your firm and for your manufacturers that you represent. So we still believe that distribution is important because importing in certain countries is becoming very difficult. Currency devaluation, these things, having credit. A lot of my manufacturers won't do that. They'll only give credit to certain distributors that have, a good infrastructure, national distributors, distributors that have brick and mortar throughout Latin America, where there's not a lot, but there's a few. And those few are the ones we deal with. And we've had a lot of success in the post-COVID times with those distributors in our go-to-market strategy. So in my mind, distributors are still needed. They're still useful in my business, but you have to be able to really, and Berenice said this, you got to train them, you got to get them on your side, you got to go out with them, you got to run projects together, you got to do all these things for the value-added proposition of both of them aligning to come to fruition.
Right. I just would like to add, I don't know whether my experience is unique or not, but I've seen many distribution companies in Latin America, that we used to deal with, either go under, disappear, or just morph into something else. Installers, dealers, whatever. Companies that used to be distributors in the past, are no longer distributors. And they have changed, they have changed their business model, but they still want to do business with you, and they still want to get distribution prices. And if you're not able to offer that, they just walk away to somebody else. I also wanted to mention something that we are experiencing as an extreme obstacle in Latin America, and that is, China. The competition with China, direct competition with China. China, there is a gray market growing in many countries, certainly in Argentina, in Colombia, in Ecuador, in many Central American countries. Chinese products are entering those countries more easily now through the gray market than ever before. I've seen that in Mexico as well, which used to be a very, I would say, safe country, averse to buying a lot of Chinese products. We also find that many manufacturers, I would say especially Chinese manufacturers, are selling online through sites like mercadolibre.com and similar sites. That integrators and dealers are using nowadays more than ever before. At least in the product lines that we are presently managing, we are managing about 15 different product lines at the present time. We are seeing that, I would say, unfair competition that is mainly coming directly from China. I don't know whether my experience is unique or whether, Matthew, Berenice, and Glenn can subscribe to the same thing. But I would like to hear from you.
Ladies, gentlemen, the China syndrome.
Yes, it happens. It happens all the time. So not only with China, sometimes with the same brand, trying to get approach direct to some key accounts. So it's very difficult also to get control on the US dealers or US distributors. But sometimes they say, okay, I got a customer and his address is based in US, so I'm not selling to Latin America. But it goes to Latin America,
Oh,
of
well,
course.
that's,
It's
a
a
great
Brazilian name, yeah, for example. So I think that going back to my first comment about how important it is to do business with people that do business in the same format that you, it is like one of the best or the key points that to keep a good development of every brand. Sometimes we work very, very hard, but at the same time, we don't have that part of partnership in the other side. So it gets difficult for us to achieve any extra goal that we want to get. So obviously, China is doing everything possible, not only from the pandemic and onwards, also backwards. So yeah, they don't sleep at any time. So I receive emails and phone calls and WhatsApp messages almost every day, sending me a lot of products. Some of them, they are very similar of the ones that we have on our portfolio, and it's like, oh, thank you, but no thank you. So there was a company who told me, okay, you can sell those goods for the big customers, but you can also have this as an option. And I was like, no thank you, we don't do this kind of sales. So no, this way, it's, of course, it's very important, the business. It's very important to get we work based on that. The more that we sell, the more that we can get. But it's not only about the money. It's a very, very, very important part, yes, but it's also about what are we adding to this industry. What are we technically, what is the effort that we are adding? Because if we sell those kind of cheap products, I don't want to say any bad word here in front of everybody. So but
That's
if
okay.
we if we sell this kind of products, it's like, so we don't do that. We don't work on that format. I respect if anyone can do that, so I respect that. Of course, there is a market and a huge market for that, but I don't like to be on the huge market. I prefer to be very focused on the people who is working harder to develop more technical things on the industry. So that's the best way that we can support them. So adding that value.
Okay, Berenice, thank you.
Thank you.
My personal opinion is that China is a player, so they're making better and better stuff all the time. So we
Yes.
need to learn how to compete. So I think part of what we're trying to do today is at least for those vendors that are interested in Latin America, is that there's a network of agents, try to establish some kind of rules of the game so that we're all working in the same fashions and competing on the same kind of level. So I think that's very important. I think the comments about distributorship is also very important. I get asks to be referred to distributors, and they always want the 600-pound gorilla. I said, don't waste your time with 600-pound gorilla, because they don't have the bandwidth to help your product. So that kind of goes back to what Matt was saying about the second tier distributors, and there not being a whole lot of those second tier distributors. But we are coming up at the top of the hour. Leo, Berenice, Matthew, Glenn, thank you so very much. I hope this was successful for you. It was certainly a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
If there's questions, people, we have like 57 people on the call. If you have any questions, reach out to Glenn, Leo, Berenice, or Matthew. They can answer your questions. Or we have a few minutes here via the chat if you want to ask anything here to the right-hand side. But we will be here for another 2 hours. Again, colleagues, thank you very much for being online with us.
Thank you.
again, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
thank you
Max. It
all.
was a pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. So Fabio, you'll move us now to the next session, or we'll take a break, or what do we do now?
I will move you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Me too.
Okay, hello everyone. Again, my name is Max Jaramillo. I'm the managing director of Latin Press, a media and events firm for business-to-business industries for Latin America. We are talking about Latin American independent reps for manufacturers with a focus on security, pro AV, multimedia, cable, broadcast, and actually we have somebody from content distribution. So in our next session, we will have Mariano Aragon, Walter Harris, Carlos Puche, and Simon Talon, I believe is how you pronounce Simon's last name. Again, as we did in the first session, I will give 5 to 10 minutes for each of our independent reps to present themselves, talk a little bit about who they are, what they do, and then we will be talking about in this session managing vendor expectations. So Mariano, you're up. Would you like to start?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Max. Great initiative to set up this panel. I appreciate that. I've been in the business for over 20 years, concentrated in broadcast media for all those years. Also with a strong concentration in Latin America, as well as Spain and US Hispanic. During those 20 years, I've been working for several companies. Also, my role as an independent consultant or agent, I started about 7 years ago. During those years, I've been working for different companies, again, always in the media and entertainment industry. Typically, I go all across the different aspects of the industry. It goes from broadcast and media services, the software, as well as, and you were mentioning that before, Max, the content distribution. So again, I have many touch points with the industry, and happy to be here. Again, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mariano. Mr. Walter Harris, you're up.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. My name is Walter Harris. The company is International W. You know, I started International W in 2002 after having set up operations for a U.S. distributor in Mexico. That was an education for me. It was actually more than that. It was a labor of love. But in the midst of all that work, I learned a couple of things. One, of course, was the need for education of people on the U.S. side, factories, or in this case, a major distributor who wanted to open up a branch in Mexico, as well as the need of dealers for information, the craving that they had for more information, and they just weren't getting it. And if they did get it, many times it was just in English. So that being said, that's what prompted me to go into the rep business when my tenure at the distributor ended. I'm based in Fort Lauderdale. I have people throughout Latin America strategically placed, and everybody has a different responsibility. Fort Lauderdale for me works well, so I can travel to Caribbean, to Latin America very easily, very quickly. And basically attending markets of end users so we can specify products that might suit their needs, products that they don't know about. And they're a great audience to speak to because they do crave information that they don't necessarily want to get locally. Distributor is important. You know, my business is based on electronic security. So the distributor market is very important because companies, factories in the U.S. simply can't have hundreds and hundreds of accounts. So we do want to rely on distributors when it's a two-way street and everybody profits from that. And of course, integrators, because sometimes the message doesn't always filter through the way we want it to. So it's sort of a three-tier approach that we have of educating these people. And then of course, consummating sales.
Okay. Thank you very much, Walter. Carlos Puche.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. And Max, I'm going to join everybody else saying thank you very much for your initiative on what you have done. Actually, never done before. Glenn says that yesterday, said this morning again, and I'm going to say it again. I think it's a very good initiative. I tend to think that the manufacturer reps, we are like the, shadow behind all these vendors that people, they're not aware, some of them, that actually we exist, because the market doesn't, in Latin America and Caribbean, they don't use too much manufacturer reps like they do in Europe or in the US. So thank you very much for exposing all these to the market. My career actually has been a little bit different. I started as a security leader in an oil company. And then I started in security like 26 years ago doing that. I'm graduated as an electronic engineer. And the reason I got into this industry is because one of my, my thesis degree actually was based on a device, a controller that I did for a local company there. And then I started getting involved in more in security. And then I started in this oil company, and then I got exposed to the big access control companies, and then I moved to the U.S. To Rochester, New York, to work with one of the biggest manufacturers at the time in the 90s. And after that, I have been working with different manufacturers, worldwide manufacturers for access control and video in the security industry. And that experience made me work with many dealers, distributors, and I saw things from the manufacturer point of view, having deal with manufacturer reps, distribution, dealers. So I saw the need. I saw all these interactions with reps and the marketplace. Then having me in the U.S. covering the Latin American market exposed me to all these reps and distributors around the whole area. Then I spent some time in Europe working for the same company, and then I came back 7 years later. I came back to the U.S. and started working for another company, doing the same thing, opening the market for the Latin American region for them. And I did this 3 times with 3 different manufacturers, and then I started my own company. We got a rep firm based on the fact that there are just a few of the reps, and there's many factories that need the knowledge of the market, the knowledge of that model, and they want to export that to the Latin American market. So I thought it was a very good idea. And I got the fortune to know all these people and some others, manufacturer reps in the region. There are just a few, but they're very good and dedicated. So I learned from the good ones. So now I joined that elite group, and here we are.
Okay. Thank you very much. And finally, Simon. Simon, let us know who you are, what you do. Tell us a little bit about your network of salespeople throughout the region, please, and the industries that you serve.
Sure, Max. My pleasure. First of all, also from my side, I really want to applaud the effort and the initiative that you're taking with this event. It's the first time that this has ever been organized, and organizing an online mini congress for agents and vendors. So thanks, and it's an honor to participate in this event. I'm Simon Talun. So, you were not completely right on the pronunciation, Max, but you were close. But working 10 years in Latin America, I got used to that, of people pronouncing my name in the most funny way, and it's part of the experience. So it's absolutely fine. So I'm Simon. I'm a founder and managing director of Footprint Latin America. We are 10 years active in the Latin America region, from Mexico to Chile. That's a region we serve, including the Caribbean and Central America, of course, and Brazil. Footprint is based out of Medellin, Colombia. I would say in the very heart, in the very strategic center of Latin America, which is a vast geographical region to cover as a rep firm, where we have physical, brick and mortar office space, an experience center and showroom where we actually invite our channel partners or strategic distributors and even end users to see and test and proof of concept an ecosystem of AV and collaboration solutions and experiences. So again, we're based out of Medellin, but my team is spread out over the region. So I currently have 7 people on the payroll, strategically located in Monterrey, Mexico, Mexico City, Bogota, Medellin, Argentina, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. So we represent a portfolio of brands, some of them very mature and established, obviously in other regions like the US or Europe, others a bit younger, but with a very interesting value proposition. And we basically focus and serve on the verticals: education, corporate, hospitality, government, transport, and in a very little fragment residential, but that's really not our core focus. So we really focus on the professional AV market and building an infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you, Simon. So the topic for this session right now is managing vendor expectation, and this session is how to set vendor expectation for the region, certainly when it's not a mature company. So it's a company that's newish to the marketplace, and they're looking to engage an independent rep firm. How do you walk them through the opportunities for the market? How do you weigh the opportunities for you as entrepreneurs for those companies interested in going to market? So kind of the idea, I've always kind of wondered how agents become married to manufacturers and vice versa. So I don't know who wants to start with that.
Mm-hmm. Can I start with that?
Okay, please.
Yeah.
Mariano, please.
Well, here we kind of have a kind of different profile in terms of what is our role and relationship with the vendors. In my case, I can talk I work basically individually. I'm not of a group with a team. So my approach may be a little bit different. But at the end of the day, there are certain points that I ensure my colleagues will agree. And it's a bi-directional. It takes a bi-directional consensus in terms that there is an opportunity, that the market is there for the brand or the product. They need to have we both need to convey knowledge about both the market and the opportunity, and then reach an agreement about what would be the go-to-market approach for that. Without those elements, it's impossible to start any kind of project or business. So it's important. How are you referring to managing the expectations for vendors? Because that previous work of research, explanation, understanding the market and the opportunity is essential. At the end of the day, it may go and it may translate in an agreement to collaborate, to work together, or it may represent that there is no opportunity at the moment for that. And this is especially key, as you mentioned, also Max, for new products or new brands that are not really, they have no presence in the region. So that's key for sure.
Walter, the research that's done to see if a company has a fit for the marketplace, is that responsibility of the manufacturer, or is that a responsibility of you as the rep, or is it a shared responsibility?
Okay, great question. So, how do we get together?
Yeah, how do you get together, and what is it a fit? You know.
Mhm. So one of the things I'm going to look at is if it fits with the current lines I have. If the potential audience, is going to be so far out of what I do, then quite honestly, I'm not interested because I'm not going to do the right job for them. But let's say it is within, and we'll use that broad title of electronic security. Part of what I want to know is to qualify the customer in this case. Because it becomes a little bit confusing. Who's the customer? On the one hand, your factory is your customer, but on the other hand, your integrators or distributors are also your customer. So we're surrounded by customers, but we need to qualify them. So that being said, I think one of the questions is, okay, what are you doing today in Latin America? And you do have to take that information, you have to filter it, because sometimes it does. Sales has a funny way of doubling their successes and halving their losses. So you sort of have to filter that information based on what you know, based on some of the homework you can do. I mean, internet helps us.
Walter, are the manufacturers transparent in that information? Like, will they tell you straight up how much they're selling, what their channels are, or is it kind of guesswork on your part?
No, they will tell me, but I often wonder how accurate the information is.
Okay.
Once again, in sales, people tend to exaggerate that number. So that being the case, if it's a decent number, okay, I have something to start with. Now, for the people who have zero, now I have to make a big decision. I forget who said it previously, but you could be looking at 2-3 years before you're really doing a handsome business. Meanwhile, you've been investing your time. But I guess just to sum up that one question of weighing the opportunity, I'm going to look at what they're doing today. If it's a fit for what I do, will it mesh well? Will it be the same customer I'm dealing with in Latin America so I can mention another product? And that's how I will do it. By the way, for the most part, I don't go out and look for new vendors, new factories. People will approach me, and it's usually word of mouth, because now they want to get involved in Latin America, and they'll ask somebody they know, hey, do you know anybody? And that's how some of my business has been acquired.
Okay. Carlos, do you also get approached by manufacturers looking for representation? If so, how do you measure the opportunity, and how do you manage their expectations in the marketplace? Senor Puche, I think we lost Carlos.
Sorry, I wasn't mute. I'm sorry. I didn't want to disturb anybody. Thank you very much, Max. I'm going to add two things. One about what Mariano says, another one about what Walter says. Managing expectations from the vendors is complicated in different ways, because normally when they approach us, say, hey, we want to, do better in Latin America. And as Walter says, when it comes to asking about how much you sell, everything tends to be bigger. And when they said what, and on the other hand, the numbers are actually go to the other side. So it is complicated because, as Mariana was saying, when you talk to a vendor, they want to know how we go to the market. So we go to the market this way. We got presence in different countries. We got people in Mexico. We got people in Colombia. We got people in Brazil. We cover the area. We know the people. We know the dealers. We know the distributors. But what do you do? What do you do in regards of presence in Latin America? What products do you have to offer that actually makes a fit for Latin America? And the other thing is, as Walter mentioned, we need to understand what, if the vendor, if this customer, new for us, it's a new customer, they have the product that will feed the market if it's needed or there's a space for this product in the marketplace. There's so many different things that we need to understand before we say yes or no. We go to the market, because if not, we're going to fail. And we're going to fail, and they're going to fail in their approach. The Latin American market is different than they normally are used to in the U.S. Totally different situations, different political situations. Latin America tends to be a very unstable place in as a region. Many things are change country by country, and one thing I noticed, and I think you guys will all agree on this: every single U.S. or European company that actually wants to start doing business in Latin America, they see Latin America as a whole. It's Latin America. We need to understand that we're talking about 40, 50 countries. We're having different issues every day in every single country. So sometimes Chile is good, sometimes Brazil is good, sometimes Colombia is good, sometimes all of them are bad. And we got elections, and we got, issues with natural disasters, political issues, and, governments, elections, depressions, viruses. So it's not a whole place that it behaves the same way. So one thing we have done, and in many years, is that we learn about that. We know, and by our different partners in the region, we are like a thermometer for each country. We know what's happening in Colombia, what's happening in Brazil. Now there's a new law in Argentina. We need to know this before we start getting on board with a new brand saying, yeah, we're going to sell a lot of things in Argentina. No, we're not. Actually, we're not going to sell anything until that's changed, because it becomes very complicated. And then we know the rules in Brazil for importing goods and then competing with local vendors. There's borders rules for things. So one thing we need to discuss with the vendors, and I think it's one of the biggest assets that we as manufacturer reps in Latin America have, is that we know these little details about all these countries where the new vendor wants to do in those countries. So they need to manage expectations in different places, and then we need to set up a target for different places with different rules. So they need to change their mind in doing one business in the US that actually behaves the same way. It behaves in different ways in different countries in the region.
One of our panelists mentioned about the wealth of experience that the manufacturers rep bring to the table, and that if you're a manufacturer new to the region, to replicate that experience is very difficult and expensive. So I certainly think that that's a little bit what Carlos is talking about here, in terms of the return and having a footprint and understanding the local issues in different countries. And talking about footprints, we go to Simon. Simon, what is your opinion here on having that experience and being able to measure a future vendor relationship with a new company?
Yeah, there's actually many criteria that you shouldn't be overlooking once you engage in a conversation with a potential vendor. And I heard many elements, many comments here by all the participants, which I fully agree with. And I do think that the first most critical part is an assessment of where is the vendor today in Latin America? What is his current positioning? We need to understand how well they understand the complexity of this region and the fact that there is no single approach to Latin America. It's exactly like Carlos said, we have 40, 50 countries with each of them their particular characteristics and complexities in terms of logistics, trade barriers, positioning of possible competitors, political, social, economical climate, natural disasters. Many external variables can actually slow down your penetration in that market. So you need to take care of that. But most important is understanding whether your vendor understands the complexity of Latin America, where they are at today, and what is their long-term perspective into the region. Because I have had conversations with several vendors that were potentially interested in Latin America, and I immediately detected that they were out for a quick win, and they were hoping for fast results after 24 months. And well, it was a very sobering discussion, so we had to walk away from it. And we said, listen, this is never going to work. This is not realistic, and we have the experience. Latin America is a region that you need to invest a lot of time, resources in before it really starts yielding results. And consistency is extremely important. Persistence and patience. If you don't have these, if you cannot show this, if you want to perform in Latin America, well, you're probably going to miserably fail. There's manufacturers that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars establishing offices in several countries, hiring people, and after 3 to 5 years, some of them, they just pulled out because they realized, okay, the return is not big enough. But sometimes you need to wait longer, or you need to change your strategy or choose for a different strategy. So we have had conversations with vendors that were completely new to Latin America, and that gave us a very high level of confidence and trust and support. And after 5 years, we're doing great. And there's other vendors that were already established in some areas of Latin America, but they really want to optimize and boost their performance by offering a higher physical footprint in the territory. And I think that's where the value that we can add into the territory. And adding to that, we are also aiming to reduce carbon footprint by reducing irrelevant business travel, because it's a huge continent. If you assign a single person for the whole territory, it's going to be a challenge to be very, very performing. So again, the assessment is important. From our side, the complementarity, the synergy with our other existing lines, and the audience. And I couldn't agree more with Walter's comment. The audience is super important, because if you're asking me to represent a line to a completely new audience and it doesn't fit well into our portfolio, well, we're going to lose everyone's time, and we're gonna burn all the resources of the vendors. So we need to be very, very, very honest with that.
Hey, Max,
Thank
I
you.
have a comment.
Go ahead, Walter.
So 2 comments. Triple E, educate, educate, educate. And the other comment is, my baby is beautiful. Every factory loves what they do. They are the best in their business. Their knowledge of exports is phenomenal. And yet, we find out that that's not true. So when I say educate, it's, you do it in your initial meeting, but you have to continue to do it, because they may be used to be doing business in the United States, where everything is, I'm not going to say automatic, but it pretty much can be, especially when they're dealing with some larger distributors who place these blanket orders in their hubs and product goes out like that. So you have to constantly remind them of what is needed, of what they have to take into account, because they will forget. Hey, I forget. We deal with it every day, so we assume that everybody knows what we know. Not true. That's my comment.
I want to add actually something else too, to exactly what he said. Not all the brands actually can fit in the Latin American market, and that is why sometimes we need to say no. And
Can you say that a little bit louder, Carlos?
As Walter mentioned before, I'm sorry. As Walter mentioned before, and as he said right now, it's very important actually to evaluate when we get an approach from a vendor, because not all the factors actually, they can be doing very good business here in the US or Canada. America, it's very big in regards of cultures. So North America, as Walter says, is basically canned. It's like, everything goes in one model, a couple of models, and everything flows by itself. After they get they get used to the market and they put in place all these strategies, everything flows a little bit, and then they just need to start, growing in markets and going to different places. When they try to go say, okay, you know what, we got the US and Canada, fully covered. Let's go to somewhere else. Let's go Latin America. That's a big potential. Mexico is huge. Brazil is huge, big economies. Okay, well, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of sales. Well, guess what? Not every single product will be suitable for Latin America. I can tell you that I have seen companies that says, you know what, we got a perfect product for this specific vertical market. We're the best one in the world. But guess what? Latin America, it's not ready for that specific product for different reasons. Maybe, the internet is not stable enough to get a cloud-based solution in the Caribbean because you come with, I don't know, hurricanes, storms, and issues with power, and then that is not suitable. So I said, well, but we are very successful in the US. Well, guess what? In Latin America, it's not going to work because we don't have that stability in what you need. So it's important to actually, when we deal with a brand, and if we really want to represent them and we believe that it's a good fit for Latin America, as Walter says, we need to educate them. We need to tell them all the facts and don't come with these big expectations. Oh, we sell 150 million in US, but we are thinking that maybe Latin America could be a 10% of that. Well, it's not going to happen in the next 2 years. We need to educate them in regards of where they are getting into. That's very important. Thank you.
I think excellent comment there, Carlos.
I
I have a follow-up question for, I guess, for Mariano to make sure we're all in this. Yes, I would probably agree. There are many companies and products that are successful in their markets, in their developed markets, that are not successful in Latin America. Have you seen the opposite? Are there companies that are not successful in the developed markets but are successful in Latin America? Mariano,
Yeah.
have you seen something
Well,
like that?
yeah, absolutely. For going first to the point about Carlos,
Mariano,
I
are you
don't
still
think.
there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'm not hearing you. Okay. Continue, Mariano.
Yes. I think everybody's can hear me. Well,
We're hearing you, Mariano. We're hearing you.
First, I was going to make a reference to what Carlos said about products, services that they don't fit in Latin America before addressing your question, Max. I mean, if a product or service has been successful in other regions,
Translate for me because I'm not hearing. Sorry.
Yeah. So sorry about that, Max. I think I can be here for everybody. So anyway, I think it's a matter, again, going to the point of expectation and our role in presenting, and because we are the locals, we have the knowledge, the experience, the contact. So certainly we are advisors to those vendors.
Max, we can hear him perfectly.
Oh, okay. All right. So somebody give me some feedback in terms of what he's saying.
Chat. Look at your chat box.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. You guys continue. Page here.
Okay. So typically I tend to think that there is no bad product or bad service. Again, especially it has been successful in other part of the region. But again, it needs time, it needs, Simon mentioned, consistency, it needs resources. I mean, certainly all the time we talk about short-term returns, we talk about short-term, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So again, a product has to be flexible. A product is not like a square box, and this is what it is, and you take it or you leave it. So also a product has to be adapted, has to be developed to the local region. That's the only way. I mean, there are again many of those components. So again, now going to Max's question. I can't think of any particular product or services. Certainly, Latin America has many differentiations for the market. But again, with all those elements, you have the product and you are able and flexible enough to adapt to the local markets. And again, I totally agree with everybody here. Latin America is not a whole. It's the sum of many different countries and many different aspects. So you have to be aware of that product. You have to be resources. You have to be to the long run. You have to invest. And you can be. I don't think anything is impossible.
Yeah, and I think it's also about having multiple touch points, both online and offline, and that brings me back to resources. So, is a vendor ready to enter the Latin America territory? Well, you need to look at the reality in terms of culture, but also in terms of language barriers. We have multiple different kinds of Spanish. We have Portuguese. So, if you have absolutely no collateral available in Spanish nor Portuguese, and the vendor is not willing to invest, to do a minimum investment to provide the most basic documentation for this marketplace, I think it's better to wait until you can allocate those resources, or you need to develop the resources and make sure that you're able to provide these tools to your sales agents, but also to all your channel partners. And sometimes that simple thing like that can make the difference. If a dealer or an end user finds something on the internet and it generates a lead that ends up first in another factory, even if the product is inferior and the price is higher, well, you're one step ahead. So I think having people on the street is one thing, but also having the right resources for your partners to educate them and to create brand awareness and identity is absolutely essential in successsul.
I totally agree. You have to assimilate your product or your service to the market, certainly. And at the minimum you mentioned, Simon, you have a minimum. You have to have the collateral and the information and the message has to be in the same language, for sure.
I think I'm gonna take three different things from one of each of you. First, Walter was clear on that. Education. We need to educate, and they need to understand how this will work in Latin America market that they don't know. Second, as Simon says, yes, we need to tell them, you know what, if you want to approach this market and you want to be in this market, then you need to be able to have at least the minimum that markets required from you. You cannot say, well, this is our product, we're the best one in the world, and guess what? You need to take it as we do it. So we got everything in English. We don't have anybody to speak Spanish or Portuguese. Our documentation is all in English, and it is what it is. And then you need to be successful. So it's important that the company says, well, I want to go to the Latin American market and I want to conquer that market. Then you need to approach the market the way you should, which is doing everything in the local language. You need to have somebody to support that area, not the rep doing everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that Max asked
is if there's a lack of reciprocation there on those asks, would you walk away from a potential vendor?
Well, I think that needs to be done. That conversation needs to be done ahead of time. So if you want to be successful in the region and you want to take a new brand with you and go to the market and open the market for them and do this, you need to establish all these things before you sign any contract. If you don't have all these pre-agreed with the company and you're going to get a brand and you're going to represent, I don't know, whatever it is in the market, and you don't have a plan and you don't have the knowledge of what the company will do to support you in your new endeavor, when I think I will walk away on that too. So let me ask you this. I'm sorry. Let me finish with this. I'm sorry. Max asked a very important question, and I don't think we at least I didn't address that. He said, how can companies be successful in Latin America and not be successful in the US? Can that happen? Yes, many companies actually have done this, and they started their approach in the Latin American market first, and then they try to come to the US. And the reason is because they are much more prepared to conquer the Latin American market because of their roots, because they are a company that already established. There's companies
Spain or Portugal or
Spain, Portugal,
Yeah.
Brazil. They do have the language. They got the knowledge. So for them, naturally, it's easier to conquer a market that they are, more aware in terms of culture and language. So there are many companies that actually has been successful there first, and then they try to come to the U.S. and actually works in the opposite way.
And then the question we need to ask ourselves is what is the definition of success again? When are you successful? When not? What is the threshold? But there's a couple of experiences that I also want to share. First of all, Max, to go back to your question on would you walk away from things from a conversation if those commitments are not being made? No, I would not walk away, but I would like to have an honest conversation, and I would like to have a canvas for the next 3 years on what the company is willing to invest in before I walk away, because nothing has to be perfect to start. You can create a 3-year horizon plan with milestones where if you reach certain thresholds, those things will be invested in. That's perfectly fine. Or maybe they want us to do it and we find a creative formula to be compensated for it and make it in terms of expenses more attractive for the factory. Finally, and I think for me, that has been an interesting learning in having had many conversations with vendors that are currently part of our portfolio and other vendors with whom we never concluded into an agreement, is that I have learned that the companies that are used to working with rep firms or agencies is much easier to engage in a conversation because, first of all, they understand the business model of the rep firm and the role, the commissioning structure or the principles by nature. And a company that's absolutely not used to that, well, they tend to see you either as a wizard or cheap labor force, bringing quick result without doing the necessary investment in the region, and that does not work. So I can summarize for us, the companies we have been most successful with are the companies that actually have invested in us, supported us, communicated with us, and gave us access to the tools as if we were their own proper sales staff, even if we are independent. But in the end, it's all about confidence, trust, and also loyalty. And if you have all those elements, even with a mediocre product, you can be very successful in Latin America because it's about consistency. It's about support. People buy from people. We use products to intermediate communication, but people buy from people. And in the end, it's the human aspect that thrives in Latin America. So those were my 2 cents.
Okay. There's 2 questions before we conclude. From Adrian Macias, who within your company plans the strategy in order to meet the expectations? Sales manager, CEO, director, or is it from the manufacturer? I think we discussed it was kind of both, but Mariano, would you like to opine on that?
Well, in my case, I mean, you have as an agent a very direct role on that. You have the responsibility. You are the first point of contact. You feed basically with the information, and so I think that that would be depends. I mean, especially, I'm sure all of us we have different. We work with different vendors with different companies. Each structure is different. Sometimes we have a very direct role and a big responsibility on that. And other times we share responsibility with some specific roles in the vendor.
Okay, thank you. And there's another question here from Benny Sterental. How different is the rep business model in the U.S. from that in Latin America? Walter?
Well, for one, I think there's a lot more respect for the rep in the United States. It's commonly used. So at least the factories understand it. I think there's more, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it intimacy. And Simon mentioned it, the idea of treating us like they would treat their own sales staff. That is a challenge. Unfortunately, we don't have access to all the information that could really help us do our job. And it is put on a back burner. Now, in the U.S., once again, I think there's just a tad more respect for it because it's a market that they can deal with and that they can measure a lot better. There's my answer.
Okay. I think that kind of
I
goes to
think,
what's
I think
you're either cheap labor force or a wizard.
Max, I think to add what Walter says, not there is a still not a very it's not a very common thing in Latin America. A lot of people doesn't understand what a manufacturer rep is. When you approach to a dealer, and oh yeah, you're a distributor. No, I don't sell. You buy it from the factory. I'm the factory representative. So I don't work for them, but I don't sell the products. I am like in the middle. So I represent them. That's why I'm a rep. So they sometimes don't get it if they want to buy the product, or they believe that if they talk to you, it's going to be more expensive. They get talk to the factory. So it's Walter. I'm going back to the Triple E. It's education. There's still a lot of education to do.
Okay. Thank you, Carlos. And finally, and if I'm interpreting the question correctly, I think this is, how do you protect your local rep from global distributors? I'm assuming that you don't want them to be poached. So I'm assuming that's you don't want them to be hired away from distributors. Simon, you have a network of people. How do you protect them from being poached?
Yeah, it's a really, really great question, Max, because it is a challenge sometimes. So there is also multiple answers to that, but basically, the good thing about global distributors is that they have good POS reporting tools, and if the manufacturer is able to make a very crystal clear agreement with those global distributors, they should be able to report all the sales that land into our territory. And in that case, we would still be commissioned. So it doesn't mean, and again, that brings us back to the conversation between the agent and the manufacturer. You have to make sure that if you're an agent for a specific territory, you should be rewarded for every sale into that territory, because otherwise it's impossible to administer, police, control that. And it's confusing for everyone. So yeah, sometimes an agent might be commissioned on a project where he didn't have a touch point with a dealer or an end user. But in the majority of the cases, if you report well about all your activity, if you fill your pipeline and provide that info to your vendor, it's more than normal that you're commissioned on all the sales into the territory. So yes, global distributors are a challenge, but if the agreement between the vendor and the distributor is properly made, it shouldn't be an issue. And actually, a global distributor can add value to the equation because they can help fulfill orders quickly or provide credit terms to a dealer that doesn't have the financial bandwidth nor to pay upfront or import a product into his territory.
Okay, I interpreted incorrectly the question, but I think you're absolutely correct, and that's where he was going there.
Maybe I interpreted incorrectly.
No. I think it's protecting the sales commissions from the reps when it's when you just said the POS term sheet. So here's a final question: when it's a worldwide integrator like a Seal Convergent, for example, and they have something perhaps a global purchasing. How do you as agents handle so commissionable and regionally?
Yes, if there's an effort related to that account or that specific project, it should be commissionable. It doesn't matter where the product is purchased. It matters where the product or the system is being installed and deployed. That's what matters. And and again, it comes back to proper reporting tools. Usually, if an agent does his job, he should be aware of a project that Seal Convergent is working on, because in Latin America, it's a lot about the relationship that you have. So it doesn't matter where they buy it, even if they buy it in Istanbul. If the project is being deployed in Sao Paulo and we were involved in that installation, if you have a good relation with your vendor, the vendor should reward you for that.
Reward him.
Yeah.
Okay.
One last, Max, I saw how different is the rep business model in the US from that in Latin America.
Go ahead.
Has that been answered already?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I'm curious. I'm curious about my peers from Latin America. But what I think, at least from my perspective, being Footprint, is the biggest difference is that our vendor is not in the territory. And in North America, where the rep model is very, very common and very well understood, well, you get a lot more of support, and there's there's much more business development or marketing activity prior to a project or an inquiry because of the vendor's home territory and the leading language. So as a rep firm, I believe in Latin America, you need to do much more effort to get something done, and you need to make much more expenses to convert to a dollar, at least in the first years. Because there's lots of traveling involved, there's lots of education involved, and it's an emerging market. So yeah, that's my point of view. So compared to a traditional rep firm, from our side, we provide a showroom, an experience center in Latin America, not because we have to or because the vendor asks us to, but because we are confident and we believe truly that we need to, if we want to make an impact and if we want to provide a manufacturer's hub in the territory where we can speak their language and respect time zones to a certain extent. That was it.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree, Simon. In Latin America, we work twice as hard to earn half as much. So that's kind of the history of working our region. But
it's triple the fun, right, Max? It's triple the fun. So
we wouldn't have this much fun. So
exactly.
Mariano, Walter, Carlos, Simon, thank you so much. Again, this is the first attempt at bringing all the manufacturers rep for the low voltage industry under one roof. I appreciate you being here with me, and hopefully we can do it again, maybe live at a different trade show.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max.
Very nice to meet Walter and Mariano as well. Good luck, everyone.
You too.
Likewise. Nice to meet you.
And so if you're those 40 plus people, we're going now to our last session with Melba, JP, and Jesus. If you're online, we'll be all moved automatically, and we'll see you there for the last session being Overcoming Challenges in Latin America, which is kind of an ongoing theme here throughout these two panel discussions. It's a big territory. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of countries. How do you set up again an agency to work successfully and make some money doing this? So I'll see you in the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Carlos.
Buenas tardes, señores, señoras. Mi nombre nuevamente es Max Jaramillo. Soy el director de... I'm sorry, we're doing this in English. Good afternoon. My name is Max Jaramillo. I am the managing director of Latin Press. We are a media and events firm, and this is our inaugural first time getting together with our Latin American independent sales agents for the security, pro AV, multimedia, broadcast industries. And the idea, it was originated that I've known some of these people now for many years, and I wanted to know more about them. And this was an opportunity to bring them together, have them share some experiences, and talk about Latin America. So we've talked a little bit about secrets to running a successful rep firm, vendor expectations, and our final last session of the day is overcoming challenges in Latin America. So the theme for this next hour will be the reality that is doing business in Latin America. It's a big continent, it's a big region, a lot of different countries, a lot of different currencies, and we will have the following agents participating with us: Jesus Fierro, JP Mora, and Melba Proctor. So as I promised everybody, you get 5 to 10 minutes to tell us a little bit what you do, what makes you special, what about your relationship in the industry, and then we'll open up the session to talk about the challenges in Latin America. So starting off, Jesus Fierro, you're up. Tell us about yourself.
You're on mute.
Jesus?
No, he's on mute.
Jesus,
Sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
I began in the industry back in 1987 as a systems integrator. And then when the century came in 2000, I began working with international companies such as Diebold, which was a systems integrator also. And then in 2003, I joined Bosch as country manager and started the operation in Mexico. After 3 years, I also began traveling to Latin America and opened the operations in Venezuela and Caribbean. And afterwards, I did several functions for the region, for marketing, for project engineering, and for business development. And I joined GP International, our rep firm, last year in 2021. This company was founded by Guillermo Palma. He was the country manager for Mexico for Crockett International back in 2000. And they were representing several lines, including Pelco, but at that time, Pelco was the #1 selling brand for many years until Schneider bought it. In 2008, he founded the company, and he had the idea to satisfy the needs of the end user, especially by partnering with competent channels that provide capillarity for the products to be distributed, products and services. Our line card consists of complementary products and services to fulfill the needs for solutions and applications. These span from display technology, security and safety systems, audio and video systems, including pro audio, but also commercial audio, and everything in between regarding connectivity. So that's a general profile of the company. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jesus. JP Mora, you're up.
Thank you, Max, and thank you for doing this, and thank you all who are here with us for the time to talk a little bit about Latin America and how to go about it. So, my name is JP Morim. Like most of us here, I started my career working for a manufacturer, an American manufacturer in the telecommunications, datacom, electrical industry. It was a good ride. Like Jesus was saying, started obviously visiting Latin America. This project started to be bigger and more complex and more sophisticated. We started, visiting the different countries and getting to see them. Then I moved to a large distributor, Tech Data, for a year. It was a really good ride. We had, I was recognized as sales manager of the year, and with all the cool things that came with that. But then I made a decision to do what I always wanted to do, and I told my wife, you gotta pack up your bags if you want, and we're gonna go live a La Dolce Vita in Italy. So off I went to Italy for 12 months for a whole year to get my MBA. And when I was in Italy, started kind of like trying to figure out what to do from there. And the same company that I was working for many years in Latin America had a rep firm in Southern California, and so at some point in the conversation we said, hey, you need a guy like me. I need a position like what you guys have in Southern California. Let's get together. Let's collaborate and get this rep firm going. And so I joined a very successful rep firm in Southern California, 50 people, multi-million-dollar business, and I was heading their Datacom division for a good 4 years. I can tell you, I learned a whole lot of things on the business, the good, what I would call, the best practices. And as I was, working with them, by the second year, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to replicate this model in Latin America and take, some of the best practices that there are in this Southern California market down to Latin America. And some of the things that we saw was, hey, business is business, right? I've done business in Latin America, I've done business in Europe, done business in the US, and ultimately at the end of the game, it's a matter of trust. It's a matter of delivering results. It's a matter of making things happen. And with those, with those elements in my backpack, the education, the learning about the continent, Latin America, having all these elements and say, hey, this is the time to get the rep firm going. And so we did. And we started, with just a couple of brands. Actually, some of the people that trusted this one manufacturer in this rep firm in Southern California, I pitched to them and said, let's take you down to Latin America. They said yes, and that's how we started. We've been evolving through the last 6 years from the day we started up to today. We are what I call, an overnight success, 6 years in the making, because in the last couple of years, our growth has been just exponential, and that's due to the trust of some of the manufacturers, but also of the partners that we have in the region, right? So distributors and integrators and all of that, and so now you look at Nuva, we are 5 people strong. We have people in Mexico and in Costa Rica, in Nicaragua. We have partners in Ecuador, in Argentina. There's a lot going on. There's manufacturers. We focus mainly on the security market, some infrastructure, some audio, but it's mainly the security market we're focused on, and we cover the region strategically, and happy to report that we're growing every year.
Well, thank you very much, JP.
Thank you.
That was nice. Good. Melbeck, please tell us about what you do at AV Tech.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Melba Proctor. I am the CEO of for Avitech Plus. We are an international sales rep firm located in South Florida. We specialize in projection screen and offer related audio-video products for commercial and residential applications. I have been in the AV industry for over 20 years. 15 of the 20, I work at Viewtech Corporation, a projection screen manufacturer, where I was managing their sales team and worked very closely with their outside US rep channel. This inspired me to start my own business as a manufacturer rep firm for Latin America and the Caribbean market in 2015. The fact that I'm originally from Dominican Republic and I have lived in the US for many years has given me the advantage to understand both the Latin American market and the US way of doing business. But of course, the experience of working at Viewtech provided me with the knowledge not only how to help the distributors and dealers with their products inquiries, also to assist them with the shipping, logistics, and paperwork required per country, which is very important when it comes to each individual country. I have been very fortunate to work with manufacturers from different parts of the different countries, different parts of the world, which has exposed me also to learn about how they do business. And I'm thrilled for the opportunity to be part of this panel and provide my humble input as much as I can.
Thank you, Melba. So the session for today's panel, our third and last panel today, is overcoming challenges in Latin America. How do you future-proof your agency business against the economic ups and downs of the region? So we talked about this, I think, in the different sessions, but it really is, I take my hat off to you, all the panelists this morning, the difficulties that we face doing business in Latin America. And as I think one of the panelists mentions, if you're a Northeast agent for the United States, it's a whole lot easier. So we have our work cut out for us, and I'd like to hear, how do you prepare for that? Do you again, going back to vendor selection, do you decide not to work with certain vendors because they are very much hit and miss, or do you go after a broad spectrum of different vendors to make sure that if you're not selling X product line, you have B, and you have other and on your line card? So that's a little bit what I want to talk about is how do you prepare yourself for the eventual downturns in Latin America that we all know are up and down throughout 5-year cycles. So Jesus, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you guys think about that at GP?
Well, what you have mentioned really resumes a lot of things. In our view, for our business, like I was saying, we want to have complementary lines where we can either sell them separately or better to make applications, systems, and in an ideal situation, come even to a solution for the end user. Of course, there are ups and downs, especially for some brands that, example, maybe industrial networking that we sell. There could be decrease in demand for that product line, but we do not want to carry too many lines because each line deserves a lot of effort to position it in the market and create demand. But there are many challenges. When you invited us to this session, I was saying, well, what are the specific problems that the reps have? And I was a little bit worried because I said, well, the problems that we face are the problems that all the small companies face. But what are specific to rep manufacturers? I made some points here of the challenges and barriers to entry for Latin America. The first one I would say is the high cost that the rep has to carry, because we are, at least us, we are always only on commissions for sales. So one of the problems is the huge territory that you have to cover. And just to give an example, Mexico is 2/3 the size of the US, but it doesn't have the communications that the US has. Brazil is another story. Brazil, it's really divided into regions, and regions are very far apart one from the other. And when you talk about the Caribbean, well, you have to be hopping from island to island because there are a lot of islands, and some are big countries, some others are insular territories of Europe, and there are two Caribbeans, no? The Spanish Caribbean and the for most division, the Spanish Caribbean and the English Caribbean, each of them operating with a different mindset. So challenges that we face are, for example, how the politics influence investment, because investors rely on the messages that the politicians send, and that creates stability on demand. Because if there are no investments, the demand varies. So we have up and downs on demand. There is also the fact of the ease of doing business that vary country by country, and this is determined mainly by the red tape that the governments do with their bureaucracy, the support to business that the governments wants to give. In the case of Mexico, the message is clear. They are not supporting the entrepreneurs, the companies. Access to credit, that depends on the rating that the rating agencies give to a country, and also other factors such as inflation, etc., that determine the accessibility to credit. It is very difficult to access a venture capital, at least in Mexico. I'm sure the other countries is the same. So also the legal system does not assure investors that they will be respected on the agreements that are done. And I don't want to put a black scenario around this. It's just that it is the way it is, and you have to deal with that. And when you understand how to travel through all these circumstances, then it's better to be informed and act on it, and not being ignorant of how really the things work. Another one that it is really shifting the way we do business is regulations. For example, in Brazil, Anatel, which is a certification, has been for years there. In Mexico, there was one called NOM, which is official Mexican norm, or Mexican official norm, which is just an homologation, very similar to UL, for example. But the thing is that in the past, your product did not need an homologation. The products that we sell, I mean business to business, because it was not sold over the counter. So with a UL certificate or other kind of certificate, it was enough. Now they require you not only to get the certificate, but to retest. You have to send the equipment, you have to send samples that are going to be destroyed under the tests, and that's a high cost. That what happens is we were selling some systems only to system integrators, others through distribution. The problem is that most system integrators now do not have the capacity, because each test costs around $2,000. So if you do that for every product that requires line voltage or more than 24 volts, you can imagine how many products you have to get the homologation for them. And that's a real problem that is making the system integrators that are very capable not to import because of the high cost and all the issues that this requires. So this is moving through to a distributor business, because they have more financial muscle. They are more used to do these kind of importations and processes, but also because as they sell to many more customers, because they are distributors, then it is justified that they incur in these costs. So we're seeing this effect of the business moving from direct sales to system integrators to only distribution, and especially wholesale distribution. Exchange rate is another issue, and the cost of travel within Latin America, as I said, is a big territory, is very high. So these are some of the ideas I wrote down to comment.
Thank you, Jesus. JP, one of the last comments there that Jesus mentioned, certainly probably more in Mexico. Do you agree that the business is moving more to a distributorship because of the gnomes?
You know what, Max? I would say it depends on the manufacturer, but I want to make a point here. I want to make it very clear. Yeah, Latin America is a tough place to be on. That's why we have a business. I'm not
I
the
agree.
one
I
who
actually very
will
much
complain
agree.
about it, right?
I agree.
So
We wouldn't be
I
here
prefer,
if it were that case.
right. So I prefer to focus on the overcoming than on the excuses. So let's talk about the overcoming those elements, right? So what you do is you prepare. It's very simple, right? You prepare. You have a strategy, and then you define what's important for every market. And it's very simple. Let me put it this way: Jesus is telling us, hey, Mexico is diverse. It's big. He's right. It is a big territory. It's the second largest market in Latin America. But let's put it in perspective. I just want to make sure that we're all in perspective here. And Pablo, if you're listening to us, this is some numbers that Pablo with our team put together, and Pablo is amazing. So let's talk about that for a second. Mexico has a GDP that is exactly, almost to the cent, the GDP of Florida. So all the opportunity that Mexico represents is cent to cent the opportunity that the state of Florida represents. So, Jesus is telling us, hey, you need to make all these investments. Well, do you want to make those investments for the size of Florida? If the answer is yes, let's do it. If the answer is not, then you got to focus somewhere else on that specific product. Mexico is not your territory. Maybe Brazil is not your territory. Maybe you're better off focusing on Central America or Peru that has a lot, leaner barriers of entry. So it really depends. You have to see Latin America as it is. It's a large territory. There's 50, there's dozens of countries. There's it's a very diverse territory, but it's a great territory to expand. It is a great territory to do business at if you have the strategy, the planning, and the ability to overcome those elements. I can sit here and complain. I don't need to complain. I don't like complaining. I prefer overcoming. And that's the part, Max, that I love about this conversation, which is about overcoming all those elements. My manufacturer, he doesn't want to know, if I had to travel, early in the morning or on a Saturday, on a Sunday. Hey, they care about the number. They care about the relationship. They care about the reporting, and that's exactly what we do. The complaining and the excuses and the feeling sorry and the hey, if I were in New England, this would be an easier life. Then that's why I chose not to be in New England. I choose to be in Latin America because I believe the market is right for that.
Good for you, JP. Good for you. I like that dose of optimism. We need to hear that. Good for you. Melba, you wanna add on to that before we talk about the distribution channel? What is your feeling about the challenges in Latin America? I feel that what JP was saying was that there's two realities. One is that it's an opportunity. So who would better to serve this opportunity than us that are in this business for Latin America? But I also, your point there with comparing Mexico to Florida is also that let's do this with our eyes wide open. People say it's an emerging market and it's a huge market. And I also tend to feel that some manufacturers perhaps think that there's more, that there's more there than there is. But certainly I applaud your optimism, and we wouldn't be where we are, all of us, if we didn't think otherwise. Melba.
Well, I would say service. If we service our customers, our distributors, our dealers, our integrators, we can overcome the issues that they encounter every day in doing business. I also encourage the manufacturers to invest in summits, invest in local. The trade shows that you guys do are excellent. Try always to explain to them that a lot of Latin Americans integrators cannot necessarily come to the shows in the United States and other places. So if they want to expose their products in those markets, they need to invest and do marketing to that market, marketing to that market. It sounds redundant, but it is true. A lot of times they think that the marketing done in the United States will work in those countries. It doesn't. Each country is individually and they work in a different way. Even that at the end, the majority speak Spanish. I also think that as a rep, I like to understand the local regulations per country or per request and trying to assist them to get the products there. I do have scenarios that I have distributors, and yes, I agree because they are distributors and they have the facility to maybe they have the income to be able to overcome the expenses that some regulations are put in place. But I also deal with a lot of small dealers and distributors, I mean, dealers and integrators that are looking for a solution and not necessarily the distributor have it. I like to think that it's good to have product diversification. Sometimes you have all the same brands in one place, and if you bring new brands or you, in my case, to overcome the ups and downs, I focus a lot in the residential, which is not a market that a lot of people care about it. Because the residential market is small compared to, let's say, United States, but there is a lot of potential there. I think that the 2020, even that is kind of funny that make a big hole in a lot of business, it also opened the opportunity to get to more people using the medias. So, but I do believe in the person-to-person relationship and approach, and I do encourage manufacturers to invest and do better programs for Latin America. So there is more interest of doing business with those type of manufacturers. Um, I don't know if that answered the question, but
Yeah. No, there's no. This is all open ended, Melba. It's a conversation. Jesus, I don't know if you want to respond. I think JP felt that you were a little too negative there.
Yeah, that's what I felt, that he felt. Maybe my tone was not correct. Maybe the way I introduced it was not correct. The point that I wanted to make is just because this was a discussion about the challenges that we face and how we solve them. I was presenting first the challenges that I see that are the main challenges that we have. Of course, those challenges are not good news, but I agree. I mean, we are here to overcome all this with creativity and being very happy about it. That's why we're here. But maybe it's just the way I presented it. I mean, I opened with the challenges, and I was expecting not only optimism but comments about how to overcome these challenges because they are realities.
Yeah, no, agree.
Every day I wake up very happy, but I come and see these challenges, and I do whatever I can in
So
the best of my. Yeah.
let's talk then about your comment about the consolidation of the wholesalers, at least in Mexico.
Mhm.
I guess this is a comment that was also reflected both in the first and second panels, is that if there's a consolidation of the wholesalers and the wholesaler can only really concentrate on those top line products that sell, and you are not the biggest boy on the block, you can't necessarily align yourself with those wholesalers. So what do you do in those cases? You know, everyone wants to be with the big wholesaler, but you won't necessarily get mind share if you're not that top product for them.
Exactly. There has to be demand for them to move and first of all get these homologations and also stock. No? Have enough stock for at least the run rate, not for projects. But the way we are overcoming this, and I mean, it is not really the function of a rep, but we are doing it, is going to end users that have repetitive business, such as, for example, banks, or for example, retail chains. And we try to get their systems getting specified with our brands, or at least parts that are used in other systems that use the products that we represent. So what we try to do at the end user level is to get specification for the brand and the features that the brand offers and differs from others. And we are now in the work of creating demand. And after we begin creating demand, then there is interest from the manufacturer, from the distributor. Sorry.
From the distributor. Okay. JP, do you
Yeah.
subscribe to that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I mean, there is.
I guess when I mean when you subscribe to that, it seems that it's a lot of lift for a manufacturer's rep to generate demand going end user to end user. So it just seems that that's a lot of responsibility on the
I would say
shoulders.
it depends on what your objective is, right? So there's manufacturers that are very much demand driven, right? Where it's a project based, it's a long sales cycle. There's manufacturers that are more of a churn type thing, right? Where it's a more tactical sell. For those, a distributor, and a large distributor is probably the best way. For those that are more an engineering solution, then you probably need to go to the end user or to the contractor or to the designer, right? The consultant, the A&E, which is a community that I believe is critical. We have them, as part of our planning. And sometimes it's overlooked because they don't cut a check to anyone, right? And so it's not part of the food chain, and so sometimes we tend to just forget about them. But ultimately, they have a huge say on many large projects, right? So I would say there's manufacturers that choose to go with distribution. There's manufacturers that choose not to go to distribution. They choose to go directly to the systems integrator. But ultimately, at the end of the day, demand has to be there, whether it's created at the end user, like Jesus is explaining, or whether it's created with the contractor, or because of the access that the distributor has. I think it really depends on the strategy and the specifics of the manufacturer more than the how to go about it. Because I can make a case for all of the above, depending on the specific manufacturer and their specific goals.
Melba, as a agent, is it better to be representing a project-based vendor or as a more of a I don't want to use the word commodity, but a more often used, a more churning product?
I prefer the project ones more than the issue that I have with the, let's say, commodity ones. They can buy it anywhere. So today with the internet, I find that a lot of times it's very easy to buy a product that is less expensive. That is, they can order it, get it in their door, and the dealers find that if they lose a lot of business because of that. So project based is something that I prefer and I try to encourage. And when an integrator or a dealer come to me for something that is more, let's say, popular brand that internet, most of the time, if they cannot purchase it, I will assist them, but I don't encourage them. Because what is easy for them to buy it on the internet, their end user is going to buy it and they're going to lose the sales and everybody loses there.
Right. Can I just complement that? Because I think Melba's got a very strong point there. I would say there's one element also that the distributor adds to the equation that is critical to the chain of value. And in Latin America, this is important. The two things I'm going to say here: the distributor adds is probably more value than you would add in Europe or in the U.S. One is putting the components in place, right? So taking it from wherever it's manufactured down to Latin America, making the import side of it, the logistics side of it, that takes a level of sophistication that usually the distributor can shine on. That's number one, place. And the second one is credit, right? Because they do have the local agreement. They have sometimes brick and mortar where they can offer credit in their currency, in their country, and if anything happens, they can go after the assets in country, which is something that without a distributor would be impossible. Now, the flip side to it is there's projects where, again, if it's an engineering project, if it's an engineering specification, that just pull through from the end user can be strong enough that it doesn't really matter how it's sold, right? But definitely, what distribution does, to Melba's point, in terms of the project business is critical.
Jesus, you wanna opine on that?
Yeah, I would just add to what has been said. Another function of the distributor, which is very important, it is to fulfill or to help not only return it to the manufacturer if it's a returnable product. I mean, if it's worth it to return it, but also to manage the advanced replacements when service is needed. So that's another function, aside from, of course, availability, all the logistics where they excel, and the credit that they offer. So,
okay,
and also homologations. No, those are functions by the distributor.
As an agent, do you? I guess it's where the most business arises from. But all things being equal, as an agent, you would prefer dealing with a half dozen distributors in country than 30 integrators, I'm assuming, or is that a false assumption?
In general, yes, but of course there are products that are better served when the systems integrators have even a direct contact with the manufacturer, especially products that require certifications, I mean training or high specialization. But most of the times distributors could do it because what we do for manufacturers is to ask the distributors to have at least one person that is trained on the systems. So they give the first level of technical support, and they also help in designing in the pre-sales stage. They also help with the project design. So yeah.
Do Melba, do you offer technical expertise for small integrators that need help?
I do assist in the products that I offer.
Okay, JP?
Yeah, we do have some I would say strong technical capabilities inside. We've also seen that if a distributor, let's say, has a pre-sales department that helps them be more effective, the distributor. Of course, the integrator, they usually do, right? The larger, mid to large integrators already have those in place,
yep.
Right? And so that is usually where things are. What we also have learned and that we've seen is we gotta be quick, right? I mean, we work on getting designs out and quotes out within the first 24 to 48 hours, depending on the complexity of the design and everything. And so for you to be quick, you have to have, combos. You have to have, cases that are already thought of that you can fit a couple things, right? And we've seen that it's more important to get things out to the integrator or the distributor as fast as possible, because this this we've learned is the numbers game. We want to make sure that we are specified in on most opportunities as we possibly can. And so we found out that we need to turn an opportunity to a formal quote with engineering behind it as fast as possible.
I think it was Melba who said service, service, service. Again, by offering service, technical service to the integrator, are you being proactive to be tighter to that integrator instead of relying on the distributor to do that job, to do that work, that responsibility?
It depends
That's a
on
question
the
from
market.
Melba. Depends on the market?
It depends on the market. And I mean, in some cases, like in Mexico, I deal with a distributor that they have the know-how, so I don't necessarily, I get involved with them when they need it, but most of the time they know more than me because they have taken all this training and they have all the brands that they can compare or have had other brands in the past that they understand very well the products. In other countries, I find that a lot of distributors are dealers at the same time. They're distributors only. And because of that, they themselves distributors, but at the end of the day, they compete with the other dealers and they don't necessarily have the staff or the knowledge because they're smaller. Everybody wants to be called a distributor because they want to get the best price. But at the end of the day, we as agents, as reps, we can figure out pretty quick, I would say.
Yeah. On the other panel, somebody, I think it was Matthew, the bullshit factor. So, yes, I totally understand that. So we're coming up now on to finalize. I don't know if Jesus, you want to add something final before I take this last question here?
Yeah. Well, as Melba was saying, service is maybe the number one factor that it's important. Being worked for manufacturers and having reps reporting to me, I know what I need from a rep. And as we are an arm of the manufacturer in our territory, we also support them by training the channels, the system integrators especially, and also the distributors in products that require it. Example, an evacuation system for safety, for fire. That requires training.
So Jesus, if I understand correctly, you as the agent are responsible for that training.
We take that responsibility. We offer it for the manufacturer.
But you negotiate that on behalf of you take on the firm, and part of that negotiation is saying, okay, we will do the training for you in territory.
Yes, we get trained by the manufacturer, and then we do training here.
Okay.
I am here at our training room.
Okay.
So, and we do it all the time. When training is required, we do it because the best way to sell and be not have problems in the future and having the end user not having problems and being happy and maybe he's going to buy again is to have the system correctly installed and serviced. So it is in our best interest, the best interest of everybody, that the one that installs and supports the system is trained, correctly trained.
But I would assume that that's also, I don't know if this was in this panel or the other panel, the difference between rep agencies in the United States and in Latin America. I would not assume that in the United States, independent agents do assume the responsibility of training.
Correct.
I had a rep in Florida, which is Salesforce and Associates. Many times they did basic training, especially in retail stores for like Guitar Center or I don't know, Samash. They trained the people in the floor because the people in the floor in these stores know more than the manufacturer, as Melba said. And many integrators know even much more than the manufacturer. So, I mean, not the engineering area, but the sales area of the manufacturer. Okay. So sometimes the rep does that even in the States.
Okay.
And it depends on the product, of course.
And depends
I
on
mean,
the rep, I would say so, to add to that.
yeah, it is not the same selling portable speakers than selling, I don't know, some kind of very sophisticated networking equipment. It
Yeah.
is not the same.
Understood. Understood.
Can I add something?
Please, Melba.
Okay. Because I deal with the U.S. reps on my previous life, there are all kind of reps. There are the reps that take it upon themselves to learn the products. There are reps that, but the point that I wanted to get across is the manufacturers in the U.S. do all the work. They do the marketing, they do the training, they do the all the work. They are in the trade shows. In Latin America, they want us to do it.
Yep.
And
I agree.
it's very difficult to get the message to them. I mean, sometimes we achieve it, and there are manufacturers that are pretty good on that. But a lot of the new manufacturers that want to get in the market in Latin America, they see Latin America as a big, big market. And they assume that because we speak the language or we know we've been in this industry for a long time, we can do for them all that work. But what they don't understand is that in the US it's a lot easier because they have it done for their sales team. For us, we need their support. And a lot of time that require us to translate things for them. But again, then our time, where do we get the money? Are they going to pay for it? It doesn't happen necessarily.
Well, Glenn Patricio says reps need to be paid by the manufacturer to do these training and services. Exclamation points.
Exclamation point. All right. Hey, Max, I want to just echo what Melba is saying, just to give, some perspective here, because Melba just touched on a great point. She said, sometimes the expectation of the manufacturer is, Latin America is a huge market. Well, let's define what the size of Latin America is. All right. So again, just based on GDP, if you take California alone and Texas alone together, GDP, that's all of Latin America's GDP. That's inclusive of Mexico, Brazil, the Caribbean, Central America, South America. So those two states, Texas and California together, represent exactly, almost to the cent, what Latin America represents as a potential. Okay, so don't expect more than two states together. And I can get into into, hey, there's more people in Latin America. Yes, there is. I can
But JP, to be fair, Texas and California are two big states.
They are the biggest. Actually, they're not states, right? They're the republics.
Right. Yes.
Texas and California.
So.
Right. So yeah. But with that said, what I would say is, if you are a manufacturer who's looking for an alternative between a direct team and a rep firm, I can tell you that is a no-brainer. The rep firm will win every single time because the ramp-up costs are small, because you pay for what you get, right? So if that's the question, if one or the other, I would say choose the rep firm for Latin America. Of course, that sounds self-serving.
Oh, I agree. No shame.
Yeah, but the math is there. Now, the other thing is, if you choose to go that route, if you then decide to go the rep firm, hey, now you have a tough one. You had some pretty good guys in the morning, and gals, you have some strong people here too. But ultimately, what you have to do is make sure that whoever's gonna be on your team is the right people to be on your team, right? So it's similar to a marriage than a transaction, right? So hire slowly. If you're gonna hire a rep, hire slowly, because this is probably the single most important decision you're gonna make for Latin America.
Okay. JP, thank you. I think you ended that nicely. I have a question here from Humberto de la Vega, a dear friend of mine. Does a rep represent a kind of risk management resource for doing business in LATAM?
I can speak to that on
All right, JP, go ahead.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, that's what we do, right? I mean, we have an American company, so So you don't even have to send funds out to a different country than the U.S. if you're based out of the U.S. And when we handle payroll and we handle everything else south of the Rio Grande. So absolutely, you treat us as if as you would treat another of your reps or other of your sales managers, and we take care of everything south of the Rio Grande. Simple as that.
Yeah, I would assume employee liability, a lot of stuff is just off the books and it's treated as a third party relationship. So yes,
That is correct.
I would agree with that. Melba, Jesus, you wanna respond to that as well?
I agree
Well,
with.
yeah. Sorry, Melba. Please go ahead.
No, I just said that I agree with JP, the risk that involved.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, the rep manufacturer reduces the risk for the manufacturer for many reasons. First of all, he's not established in a country. There are many things that are not only risks about, for example, not collecting bills or extending credit that is not being paid, but also tax aspects like the transfer prices and I don't know permanent establishment issues, etc. So we make in that respect make the life easier, and we also, as we are an extension arm of their sales area, we also analyze what the situation is with the customer. We can foresee if there will be problems, etc., and let the manufacturer know. So yes.
Okay. Great event, says Humberto. All right. Well, Melba, JP, Jesus, muchas gracias. Thank you very much. As I've mentioned, all three panels, this was an inaugural session, an inaugural attempt. Let's try to do it again. And we'll be in touch. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to the 36 people still in line, thank you very much. And you know, if anybody needs to contact one of our agents, we have the information. It's online. It's all over the place. So thank you very much for being with us. Melba, JP, Jesus, muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.